When I first started to set boundaries in my own life, I had a hard time figuring out what I needed. I struggled to identify how I was feeling, and then I struggled to know what to do with those feelings. Since I wasn't sure how I was feeling, I would typically end up with boundaries that were super flimsy and unclear, or I just wouldn't set them. Eventually, through a lot of difficulty, uncomfortable situations, and failed relationships, I was able to figure out how to identify my feelings and then how to use them to set the boundaries that I needed. Now, I'm going to save you a lot of trouble and a lot of complications and tell you my process so that you too can connect with your feelings and set the boundaries that you want. All right, so let's just start with the baseline that feelings are important. They're indicators of you and your environment, and they're tools that can be used to better love, support, and engage with yourself. Okay, so then what are we supposed to do with our feelings? Good question. Let's talk about it. The most important thing that you can do with your feelings is to recognize and then label them. Before we can address them by labeling them, we have to recognize when they're happening. And sometimes that can be really hard. It takes a lot of practice to be able to recognize our feelings and to label them. So as we go through this process, just hold yourself gently and give yourself time to develop this skill. A good way to recognize your feelings is to notice when they start to creep into your thoughts. Here are a couple of ways that your feelings could be showing up in your thoughts. Jumping to an opinion. Jumping to an opinion is when you reach a conclusion without all the information. Black and white thinking. Black and white thinking is when you think about a person or a situation in very rigid terms. So when you think about someone, you think they're either bad or they're good. There's no in between, no gray area. Paranoid thinking. Paranoid thinking is applying one situation to many. That cashier was mean to me, so all cashiers are going to be mean. Catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is going straight to the worst case scenario. This date you went on was terrible, and now you will never go on any good dates. Emotive judgment. This is a sneaky one. Emotive judgment is when you make a choice or a judgment too quickly and it's based on feelings rather than fact. So this is very, very sneaky and creeps up on us all the time. It can be hard to recognize this one, and this one can have a large impact on us. I view all of these thought patterns as red flags. I see them as red flags because they're indicators to me of when emotion is at play and when I need to address that emotion. So when a red flag comes up for you, trace that thought that you're having back to the root. Figure out what that root feeling is and give yourself a moment to cope with it. Then label that feeling. Recognizing and labeling your feelings is a huge part of having good mental health. Okay, now that you have recognized and labeled your feeling, you're ready to process it and get to the boundaries that you need. Everyone gets to decide how they process their feelings. You have to figure out what's best for you. Some people are internal processors. Some people are verbal processors. Some people process while doing a craft or working out. It's important to take time to figure out what's going to work best for you. For this video, I'm sharing what works best for me, and my hope is that that can be a launching pad for you. Typically, I like to use my process while journaling, but if the need arises, I'll use it during verbal processing or even for a quick internal processing if the situation calls for it. I always start by taking a deep breath. I know that can sound cliche, but your breath is going to help you to connect with yourself and slow down some of those red flag thinking patterns. I always start by asking myself, what am I feeling? Then I affirm myself. I let myself know that it's okay to have that feeling. I say something like, that does suck, or just, yes. By affirming myself, I'm starting the process off by saying, this matters, let's address it. Then I ask myself a series of questions to get to the core of the situation. Why are you feeling that? What do you need? What are you in control of? What would you like to do next? This process helps me get to the core of the situation and then move forward to the outcome that I want. From here, I can see what boundaries I need, and I can start to determine the steps I will take to set them up. When I first started this process, it was a little uncomfortable to do. But as I've continued to show up for myself and work through these questions, it's become second nature. So don't get down on yourself if it feels uncomfortable or it's difficult to do at first. I'm also going to help you out. I created a little write-up that has the red flags and the process on it that you can get down in the comments. So make sure you grab that as you start this process. Thanks so much for watching, and hold yourselves gently.